shortly. It looks like we've got introductions first. It would be really helpful for me. I mean, I know most of the people at PPS, but and Kevin, I don't know if let's just go around and do introductions. It would benefit me. Thanks. Just your name and your role. Marina, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. Marina Cresswell, I'm the Senior Director of the Office of School Modernization.
I see Kevin next.
Kevin Spellman, Chair of the Bond Accountability Committee.
Dan?
Dan Young, Chief Operating Officer.
Director Moore?
Rita Moore, Director.
Ms. Bradshaw?
Hi, Kara Bradshaw, Executive Assistant for the Board.
Mr. Valentino?
Hi, everyone. Luis Valentino, Chief Academic Officer.
Is it Jaya Podasco? Mitchell? Can you introduce yourself? Jaya?
My name is Jaya. I'm a DS.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
DSC, the student committee.
Thank you. David Roy?
Hi, everyone. David Roy, Senior Director of Communications.
Superintendent, Deputy Superintendent Hertz?
Hi, I'm Claire Hertz, and I work with business and operations.
Jackson Weinberg?
Hi, I'm Jackson. I'm also on the District Student Council.
David Main?
Hi, I'm David Main. I'm the Communications Manager for the Bond Program.
Roseanne?
Roseanne Powell, Board Manager.
And Scott? Scott, you're on mute. Scott, can you introduce yourself?
Looks like his mute is off. Yeah.
Yeah, in case he's having audio issues. Scott Perlow is the Program Manager for the Office of School Modernization, so I'll just go ahead and introduce him right now, and we can move on.
Okie doke. Superintendent, we're just introducing ourselves.
I think I know most of you.
What about Stephanie?
Good afternoon, Stephanie Soden, Chief of Staff.
Have I gotten everybody? I think we have. Okay. Is there any public comment?
No.
Okay, great. So it looks like we've got a quarterly report coming up from the Bond Accountability Committee. Kevin, I believe that's you.
Thank you, Chair DePass, and congratulations on your new position here. Welcome. It's been quite a while since the BAC met. It was July 29, and so some of this information will be a little outdated, I think. But in any event, at the time we wrote our report, the district was underway for construction work at Kellogg, Madison, and Lincoln. Was doing punch list work and closeout at Grant High School. Closeout at Roosevelt, plus work on the windows rehabilitation and tenant improvements for Phase 4. Closeout at Franklin, multiple health and safety projects, and engaged in design work for Benson and multiple pathways, plus the tenant improvement work at Marshall. Before we get into any of the specifics, we want to note that the Office of School Modernization is continuing its search to fill several staff vacancies, including Director of Construction and a new position, Senior Manager of Business Operations. And we just want to say that OSM staff has been operating shorthanded for quite a while and been doing a great job. But it would really be nice to fill some of these positions, recognizing how hard that is these days. At the same time, the current contract for program management and construction management services, which has been with CBRE/HERE since 2012, expires in December, so an RFP process is underway. With regard to the 2012 bond program, closeout and final accounting are in various stages. Our audit subcommittee has received a copy of the closeout cost audit for Roosevelt, at least through phase 3, and we're looking forward to seeing the district's response to the questioned items. At Grant, some late cost issues have arisen with the contractor, and OSM is working diligently with them to resolve those. And one of our recommendations, of course, is to carry forward any lessons learned from the late cost issues and adopt those program-wide. Cost projections for the bond include funding for some ongoing work at Franklin and Roosevelt and a few improvement projects at Grant. And as before, lessons learned on completed schools are shared with the teams on upcoming projects. The 2012 program now shows projected final savings of just shy of $1 million. The 2017 bond program, as you all know, remains in the red. As we reported last quarter, a bond premium amounting to $68 million was secured and was very welcome, obviously. Our recommendation, again, is that these funds should be formally transferred to the current budget for Benson High School, and it may have been done by now. There's been no resistance to that, so I don't think that's controversial. Projected interest earnings for the program were reduced, I think before our last meeting, from 21 million to 12 million. And in addition, an error in recording interest for 2019 resulted in an overstatement of more than $3 million. So that needs to be adjusted. The entire program now reports unfunded costs of $210 million. And your committee will remember, of course, that a projected shortfall of $214 million has been included in the board's 2020 bond referral. Challenges to the program, the 2017 bond, rise out of, as is the case with everybody, arises out of the coronavirus pandemic. It's caused some labor challenges, slowdowns from social distancing requirements, and supply chain disruptions. OSM, I think, was very proactive in working with contractors to identify and mitigate problems, but costs are building. We have recommended, and again recommend, that OSM kind of maintain a current program-wide analysis of incurred and projected cost and schedule impacts of COVID-19. And we would like to see those at each of our quarterly meetings. This issue, of course, is high risk to the program, and we need to stay on top of it. Kellogg's construction is proceeding on schedule to complete in early 2021. The project contingency remains healthy at this time. Schedule and budget, on the other hand, remain the key issues at Madison. There's little schedule float left after delays in the permitting process and some other challenges, and that's been exacerbated even this week with shutdowns due to the air quality situation, and perhaps Marina will address that. The board can help allay a risk item, a schedule risk item at Madison, to the extent that if the school is to be renamed, that cannot be left to the last minute, or it will have an effect on completion of the school, of course. And I'm sure OSM will let you know the timeline that they need to know of any change. Schedule issues, of course, at Madison will also affect the budget. And as you may recall, the project started with a slightly reduced project contingency. And so we're going to be looking for an update on the status of that contingency that's been challenged by COVID costs as well as other issues. Work at Lincoln is continuing, although I think it's been, again, shut down this week. The building permit was expected by the end of August. I do not have an update. Again, perhaps Marina does. The Lincoln schedule, as you know, still predicts completion of phase 1 for the 22-23 school year, with phase 2 work to follow at that point. Benson High School has reached the 75% design development milestone in its design, and work continues on value engineering options so that the next cost estimate will be within budget and with a healthy contingency, we all hope. Swing site work at Marshall and Kenton started this summer. And the auxiliary CTE building at Marshall for the use of Benson is being reduced in size for budget purposes. Health and safety projects are all over the district. Roof work is underway at 6 schools, fire alarm at 18, ADA work at 6, asbestos at 11, plus lead paint, water quality and security work are going on. Of the $158 million dedicated to health and safety, over $74 million had been spent at the time of the report. I want to spend a few minutes talking about equity and how we are situated with regard to certified business participation. The percentage going to certified businesses has fallen again to now a cumulative just under 16%. And the district's aspirational goal, as you know, it remains at 18%. And I think this latest switch has highlighted an issue with the reporting protocols, which may be kind of inside baseball a little bit, but it's reported on a payment basis, which has its pros for sure. But by doing that, the percentage actually it's not really predictive of how the program will necessarily finish. And so we at least think that we should be also looking at percentage on a contract basis to give us that sense. The Madison contractor gave a presentation and let us know that its participation is only at a little under 12%, with very few additional contracts to be let to make up that difference. Lincoln also told us that after letting most of its phase 1 contracts, they are also at about 11%. And it was clear from the reporting that the consultants on both Lincoln and Benson are also falling short of the goal. We think that this is timely to take a fresh look at our protocols with regard to certified businesses and the bond program. And we know that more than OSM is engaged in that. Purchasing and contracting and community engagement are involved in that. And we think this is the time to have those three, and maybe others, I don't know, work together and take a fresh look at the program before work starts on Benson and MPG. And of course, if the 2020 bond passes, there'll be a whole other slew of work coming there. It's not in the report, but since the report was written, staff has recommended some attention to the to this issue by performance auditors, which is appropriate. But we think that that should not delay an energized look at how we can improve.
Kevin, can I interrupt you for 1 second? And
Yes.
Maybe instead of discussing this now, Marina, could you make sure that you address this in your report? I'm interested in knowing whether staff is discussing how to address this problem. And my other question, Kevin, is that are those progress payments or are those just final payments that are reflecting the level of participation? Because if they're progress payments, you should have a chance to course correct, right?
That's right. The numbers are, well, the overall program of 16% is progress payments. The 12% at Madison and 11% at Lincoln are contract based. So Lincoln still has phase 2 to be let, but you know, the total contract's so big that making up a 7% shortfall out of just phase 2 is not really practical. So we're just not going to get to 18%.
So Marina, if you wouldn't mind tucking that into the appropriate place in your presentation, that would be helpful. And my other question there would be, why are these going down? Because historically on the 2012 and beginning of 2017 bond, we had higher levels of participation here, or of MWSB contracts.
Sure, I'm happy to talk to that in my report.
Thank you.
I also, thank you, Amy. I'm also concerned with that too, and just wondering, not necessarily about how we're tracking it, but what we're doing on the pre-construction and in terms of engaging with the larger general contractors. What are we doing through procurement to engage, you know, the minority contractor community? And then I also would like to hear a little bit more about the permitting delays at Madison. What are the causes, and how do we resolve those issues? I'm just curious if that's if we can address that during this meeting today too.
Permitting delays were at Lincoln, and I'll be happy to discuss that. I was already planning to.
I want to be clear on the certified business issue that we're not necessarily being critical of the work by the prime contractors. We had a comprehensive presentation by the prime on Madison, and they seemingly did an astonishing outreach exercise. Our issue is, if that's not good enough, what else can we be doing? And that's why we think we need to pay attention to it at this point.
Have we communicated to the general contractors that this is this is an important, you know, this is something that we're expecting them? I know that on the City of Portland jobs that are happening right now, we're getting upwards of 22-25% MWESB certified firm participation. So the firms are out there. The firms are out there. I'm just wondering where in the supply chain, you know, where we're failing.
Right. And that's why we think that that's worth attention from each of the stakeholders who's involved in this. The safety record in the program continues to be a good one. Madison has now recorded over 300,000 hours and has only had one minor recordable accident. And neither Kellogg nor Lincoln have had recordable accidents, even though when combined, they're at about 90,000 hours. We addressed just briefly audits in our report, and the mid-contract cost audit at Madison has been provided, and we're hoping to hold an audit subcommittee meeting with staff and the cost auditor. Although we have to address some public meeting rules with regard to that, I don't think we can effectively have a public meeting involving a discussion of incomplete cost audit, not incomplete in the sense that the audit work is incomplete, but the work itself is incomplete. So we're hoping that we can work with staff to get that done. We addressed some other issues, and this followed the meeting rather than in the meeting, and I'm happy to see that the committee is going to be discussing today these issues that we wanted to bring up. The reporting framework from staff to the BAC and probably from the BAC to the committee. That's for you to say rather than me, but they're probably no longer as effective as they could be. They were developed way back in 2013 when life was a lot simpler in the bond program. There were just a handful of projects underway at any one time. Now, as we're discussing, there are just an enormous number of projects and issues, and so we need to find a better way. It's not to say it can't be done, it certainly can. And I know Dan and Marina have been working with the BAC members who will be staying on after this year, but the board can certainly help. We think it would be helpful if the 2021 BAC chair could be identified so that that person could help in the process. And I know Dan and Marina have raised this as well. 3 BAC members will be leaving at the end of this year, and there's currently 1 open seat as well. And so filling those positions is of some importance. With that, I'll close and be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Spellman, Kevin. I appreciate that. Does anybody have any further questions?
I have a couple of questions that come out of the BAC report that, Marina, you may already be planning to address, but one is about the question of sweeping the bond premium into the Benson project budget as opposed to, or project deficit, as opposed to just a program budget. It wasn't clear to me from their report whether that was intentionally holding that back or whether it just hadn't been done yet. So if you can address that. And then also the error in recording the interest earnings was the first I had heard about that. So I'd like to just hear a little bit more as you provide your budget presentation. But thank you, Kevin. Thank you, BAC members.
Thank you, Kevin. I also have questions about the openings in the OSM, the Director of Construction, and the other position, which I don't have in front of me. If I'm sure Marina or Dan, maybe you'll update us on that, but are we planning on hiring for those positions, or what's the status of that of those open positions?
I will update you on those too. Would you like me to go ahead and do my report?
I think so. If there are no further questions.
Okay. So as of our last report in June, we were 3 months into the pandemic. We certainly knew that there were some impacts to them. Now we're 6 months in. We've seen a little bit more of what it's throwing at us. In addition, we've seen wildfires and air quality issues. All of those things are certainly having an impact on the bond program. On the flip side of that, the schools have been closed to students since March, and that has provided us some opportunities as well. And so I want to talk about all of those things. I think, as Kevin noted, the pandemic has created some issues for us in differing ways. So some of our projects have seen supply chain issues. And when we say supply chain, that means things like we may not be able to get certain types of parts as quickly as we were supposed to. So promised schedules are not necessarily good schedules anymore. We've seen that with things like elevators, water fountains, some very unique and specific items. We've seen some work slowdowns due to the need to provide social distancing. That can be things like needing to put workers on 2 different lists instead of sitting next to each other on one lift. So that has some impacts as well. And I think, probably the one that is hardest to anticipate, we've seen more people gone for testing. And I think what makes it particularly hard to anticipate is that nowadays, if somebody doesn't feel well, it doesn't mean that they come to the site and continue working until they feel so bad that they go home. If they don't feel well, that typically means that they stop working immediately, and then they quarantine until they can get in and get tested for COVID. And if there is some suspicion that they might have symptoms that are very similar to COVID, then it can slow down work for their coworkers as well. And I think these are the impacts that it's very hard for us to anticipate. We've certainly seen those impacts on our projects with folks having to stay home, frankly, more than they used to. The good part of having less occupied schools is that many of our projects that work in those schools have been able to move forward more quickly. They've been able to move through the schools more easily. They've had to take, less considerations of working around students because there aren't students to work around. And that has certainly helped us with our health and safety program in particular. We did complete a significant amount of work this summer on our health and safety program, and I think Kevin talked through various numbers of that. Couple things I'd like to note. Our fire alarm upgrades will be completing this fall. Our security upgrades will be completing this fall. Our packages 1 and 2 are actually already complete. We are completing package 3, and we're also working on signage and fencing, small amount of fencing to go with those. Our water fixtures that we are installing that will take water to less than 1 part per billion lead, those are starting installation. We've started installation on a package of 5 schools, and we will be continuing those through the rest of the district through the end of 2021. We did quite a few roof projects this summer. As Kevin noted, we have 3 more we would like to complete next summer with savings from the water quality program. We'll be talking about that with the bond committee further. And we have ongoing work in asbestos abatement and lead paint abatement. The modernizations have been moving forward. Talk about some of those pandemic air quality fire issues in just a minute. But they are moving forward. Some of you may have noticed that we are not offering tours of our work sites. That is a risk we don't want to take with the COVID-19. However, many of those sites have a lot of visibility from the fences around them, and so we do encourage you to go and see what things are going on around. Kellogg in particular is furthest along of those sites, and you'll see that it looks quite finished from the outside, but there's still a lot of work occurring on the inside, and there's a fair amount of site work still occurring as well. Lincoln did have some permitting challenges. Those are COVID related primarily. The city had to retool how it worked in the same way that we had to retool how we work. They've made a lot of changes to how they're doing things. It is getting better, but it definitely did impact our permits for Lincoln. We have been able to work with the city to move forward. And so we are moving forward with work while we wait for a final permit. Madison is the project that probably has the tightest schedule of the modernizations. And I think, as you heard Kevin say, they are struggling with the tightness of their schedule. They did have shutdowns related to the pandemic. They have also had shutdowns this week due to air quality. We'll talk a little bit about that. They are currently on schedule as of today. However, we are looking at what we will need to do to stay on schedule. There are concerns. We will continue to work through those concerns, and we will continue to be talking with you about those concerns as we move forward. One of the things that we'll be doing with the Madison project is we are putting together a transition team. This is similar to something that we did last year. When we move our modernization projects out of their swing sites, we typically have another modernization project where the school needs to move into that same swing site, usually in the same summer, a very compressed amount of time. Last year, we put together a transition team to make sure that we had all, interested parties of the district available and able to provide input so that we can make that transition as smooth as possible down at the Marshall site. This year, we'll be doing the same thing. We're actually going to start it a little bit sooner than we did last time. And part of that is that we can also talk through this tightness of the schedule and what that might mean in terms of, are there portions of the school that might still be under completion for Madison when students move back? And if that's the case, how do we address it? So we'll be working with representatives across the district to talk through those issues and the implications and what we need to do to be prepared for that. Benson is working through design for the Benson campus and the swing sites. They did also do several improvements to Marshall over the summer to prepare Marshall for Benson moving in. One of the things that's unique about Benson is their CTE programs, obviously. Those CTE programs are not like a regular high school, so they require different types of spaces, and we were having to make some modifications to Marshall to accommodate those unique spaces, to accommodate things like the weight of the equipment that is not common in a classroom. And so we've been doing improvements over this summer to kind of get ahead of the game for next summer, because we know that we can't be doing a lot of construction while we're also trying to move teachers and classrooms out and move teachers and equipment in. So one of the things we're doing ahead of time. We're also, just a couple notes on some additional 2012 projects. The Grant Upper Field improvements are in design moving forward. We'll be having a town hall meeting to discuss the scope of the work. And the team is engaging with the design advisory group on that. Roosevelt High School, the windows that we were addressing are mostly complete. The Phase 4 did do some work over the summer in the main building to prepare for work to occur in an addition. We have to be able to connect the addition to the main building. We wanted to be able to kind of prep all those connections while there were no students in the main building so that we can continue to move forward with the addition even after the school is occupied and we have minimal impact on the occupied spaces of the main building. So they did do some work over the summer for that, and we are getting ready to bring a contractor on for the addition. not so much specific to projects. I do want to touch back the air quality issue. We did have several days this week where projects were shut down due to air quality. Some of our projects gave their contractors, or I should say the general contractors gave their subcontractors the ability to do some work utilizing N95 masks, assuming that they were, fitted properly and meeting all the safety requirements. So we did see some work continue, but it was very, very minimal. For the most part, our projects were essentially shut down in the same way that the schools were shut down. We anticipate that most of those projects are going to be back up and running tomorrow. Going on to some general sort of program-related items. I'm going to start with our open recruitments. We do have 5 open recruitments. We finished our first round of interviews for project manager 1 positions. Those are sort of an entry-level project management position that will be supporting different projects, including Benson team in particular. We are getting ready. We're in the process of scheduling interviews for the director of construction position, for our e-builder administrator, and for the senior manager of business operations. We will soon be scheduling interviews for I'm going to get the classification wrong. It's our business analyst 1 position, which is essentially our contracts person. So we've had some vacancies. The contracts analyst position has been vacant for a while. We've had folks there doing double duty to kind of keep up. The e-builder administrator position was a new position that we were bringing on to help us provide better support internally for our e-builder software. The director of construction has been vacant, but filled with an interim. And so we've had somebody in the role, but it needs to go through the recruitment process and actually bring in a permanent hire. The senior manager of business operations is a new position to us. It's one that we are bringing on to oversee all of our operations staff that are not project staff. And so it will provide a similar function to our director of construction, only it'll work on the operations side. So they will oversee our contracts, our finance, our communications, our administrative support, all those sorts of things. It will actually be a really good benefit to me in being able to take on some of the more administrative tasks and allow me to be able to see more and do less. is probably the better way to put it. We have good applicants for all of those positions. We've had good response, and I'm very hopeful that we will be getting through these recruitments and these interviews quickly, and we'll be bringing people on before the end of the year. In fact, we're targeting to get most of these folks on right, depending on how long it takes to do all the interviews and offer negotiation. We're looking at somewhere in the November timeframe for many of them. Director DePass, does that answer your question about the recruitment?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Thank you. Thanks for that. I had no idea there were 5 positions open.
Yes, it is certainly a lot, and we had some delays as we were dealing with the pandemic, and so once we were able to kind of move through those issues, we were able to get things moving again. So on our audits, our performance audit, I just want to note again that we had our performance auditors, SEC, provide a presentation on the year 2 audit report. We are working on the year 3 work plan, and Kevin mentioned that. one of the things that we anticipate doing with that year 3 work plan is we've asked them to look at business equity in particular. And while we're still kind of talking through the refinement of it, we anticipate that they will be looking at not just our aspirational goals for business equity, but what we are actually doing to support our contractors being able to meet those goals. So we do want to take a closer look at that. I'll come back to the equity in just a minute. I did want to note a couple other things that we're working on currently. We continue to work on a number of different improvements within OSM. We are revising our lessons learned database so that we can provide better, and not just better data, but actually better ability to analyze the data and to share it and to identify program-wide improvements that we need to implement based on these lessons that we're learning. So I'm feeling very good about where we're headed with that, and I'm excited about moving that forward in a way that really allows us to continually improve. We're also...
Marina, if I can just comment on that for a second. I thought that was one of the brightest spots of the recent audit, that they had very favorable things to say about how your team has been implementing recommendations from the past audits. So keep it up. That's really important. And I think we've all had experience with sort of backward looking reviews where new ideas are brought forward and old habits are chastised, and then we don't do a great job of following through. So that was, I was really glad to see that in their really exhaustive review.
We are, we enjoy working with our performance auditors. I say that with the caveat that it's painful. As you said, it is always painful to find out what you did wrong, right? But out of that is learning where we can improve. And so often what happens is as they're going through and they're doing their field work, they're asking us questions, and just the sheer act of asking those questions is allowing us to see where there's gaps or where there's things that aren't working well, where there's friction. And by the time that they've provided us with their audit report, we've already been thinking through the things we need to change based on the questions they were asking during the field. So it's been, I think it's a really good process, and my team has really embraced the opportunity to improve based on those kinds of questions that they're asking, and then the reports that we're getting at the end. So we're excited by it. It's like you said, it's hard to have them look back and say you didn't do that very well, but we're all about continually improving, and this is how we're going to do it. So we've asked them for the year 3 work plan. We've kind of specifically called out some things that we are looking for improvements. So we kind of know either we're seeing, like with the equity, that there's some issues there, or the things that we think, frankly, could just use a closer look, so that we can really focus in on improving those things.
I appreciate that too. I mean, I keep going back to, we're a learning institution, and so this continuous improvement, look back, look ahead, and kind of our proactive approach in, in working with those performance auditors is great. If there's something to be learned, great. That's what we're in the business of providing, education, learning environment. So Thank you.
Yeah. And speaking of learning, so one of the things that we've been doing, and we've talked about this a little bit, is we've been kind of restructuring our standard operating procedures. These are the procedures that we provide to our staff to give them guidance on how to move forward with certain types of actions. We took something that was sort of more like a book that you would read, and we've turned it into individual SOPs, or standard operating procedures. We've been going through, working with our staff. Each one that we draft, we sit down with all of our project staff and we go over it. We talk about what might need to be improved before it's finalized. We talk through the issues, and then we go and we sort of finalize and publish it. We recently discovered that we can actually put all of the standard operating procedures on Pepper, which is, for those of you that are not within the PPS system, that's the training software that will track. You can assign trainings to staff individually. You can track when they've completed them. You can send them reminders. This is, Dan, I think, laughs at me because I get so excited about this, but I'm really excited that we can actually assign SOPs to our staff and track that they've been going through and reading them, and that we can maybe even do it on an annual basis, though it might take them a couple hours to go through all of our SOPs to do that. But this will give us so much better sense of knowing that our staff have read through these SOPs and that they're really actively viewing them, that they don't just get put in a binder on a shelf somewhere. So this is another thing that we're working on currently. Equity. So I wanted to come back to the equity question. I think Kevin mentioned we did actually have the Madison team do a presentation at the last BAC meeting about their efforts towards business equity and workforce equity. And, I apologize because even though those materials are in the presentation, I didn't necessarily call that out. If you go and look at the materials that have been provided to you, and you go to look towards the, sort of the back part of the presentation where the section is on Madison, you will find all of the materials that they provided to talk about the process they went through for trying to achieve their aspirational goals for business equity. So you'll be able to see sort of the extensive outreach that they did, the things that went right, the things that went wrong, understanding that with our CMGCs, typically what they're attempting to do with their buyouts is best value packages that really take into consideration certified business participation. So there are strategies that they're putting in place to try to achieve the aspirational goals. We did know at the time of full buyout for Madison that they were not going to achieve the aspirational goal of 18%. It sounds like we neglected to convey that to the BAC, and that's an error on our part. But I don't think it was not a surprise to us that their payments are showing them at 11. We do know that they're still at that 13%, and as their payments continue forward, we'll see that change. That's one of the nuances of a payment-based recording system for the certified business. With Lincoln, they are also currently below the 18%. I think the number that Kevin has is not fully accurate, but I am still looking into that. And I also want to say that they're not fully bought out. And so what we're hearing is that they anticipate the number will go up percentage-wise when they are fully bought out, including the second phase. So they have two phases to the project. The first phase is primarily bought out. The second phase has not been yet. And they do anticipate that percentage is going to go up with the second phase buyout. I don't believe they are going to reach the 18% even with that, though they are certainly doing everything they can right now to get there. Trying to think what else I wanted to touch on with the equity questions. Did you have, have additional specific questions, Director DePass or Director Constam.
Just for a time check, we are a little bit over time. If anybody has questions, maybe we can quickly tie this portion up and move on to our next topic.
I do have a question, or it's just really some food for thought, and we can come back to it sometime. But I have a question about whether there's any kind of professional learning for our contractors on equity work and our vision as a district, to make sure that our contractors are aligned with our values as an organization, because we can talk about this later, but I've heard a few comments from some contractors and subcontractors that it's not always a hospitable environment for some of our minority contractors. So just thinking about how do we more broadly telegraph our values as an organization so that they're present in this side of the work too.
And I know the district used to have someone in the contracting office, or purchasing rather, that was focused solely on interfacing with organizations such as the Oregon Association of Minority Entrepreneurs, National Association of Minority Contractors, and others. That and I'm not sure if we're as a district participating anymore, but that was a great opportunity to share our values around contracting, and is the place where people go to express those values. So I don't know if anybody is charged with that, or if the business analyst person does part of that work, but I think that we can work to get those numbers up, which is particularly important right now as we're selling this large package of work upcoming, hopefully. That's something that I've heard also people are concerned with is that MWESB utilization rate.
Certainly. Purchasing and contracting does still engage with all of those organizations that you mentioned. And our project managers are also engaging when they are out in the process of doing these buyouts, as are the contractors themselves, the general contractors, but just within PPS. I'm sorry, Deputy Superintendent Hertz, I think, was starting to say something too.
I think you covered it. We did have a person in that position. It was a budget reduction when the position was vacant, but we have assigned different places from our purchasing and contracting team, different associations that they attend and are participating in. So if anything, we have more people involved, where before we just had one single person. Now we have many people involved in the work. And also probably we could look and see what is one place I think we could improve on is how we're looking in with OSM and purchasing and contracting together. And Marina probably knows more about that than I do, but it's something that we could certainly look into.
I would also encourage you to look at the BAC presentation. Page 45 is the start of the Madison special presentation on business equity and workforce equity. And I think that you'll find that there's a lot of very good information about not just what the general contractor for Madison did, but sort of what's typical practice. These are the same sorts of things that occurred with the general contractor for Lincoln as well. So it's helpful information so you can get some background on the types of things that they're doing.
Thank you.
Michelle, you're muted.
I'm so sorry. Oh, I hate that. I still want to get a T-shirt that says, you're muted. I'm curious if the GCs, or what protocols the GCs have on site to, you talked about work delays and work stoppage due to air quality or COVID. Do the GCs have protocols in place to do testing in the morning when people show up to the site?
Every one of our fully fenced sites or fully controlled sites has a GC-specific COVID safety plan. Most of those have actually been negotiated with OSHA, So they're fairly finely tuned to the specific site and to the specific situation. Each of them is doing something slightly different. That's not to say that they're doing, one's doing better than another. It's just that they're approaching it in different ways. So, I could not tell you if somebody is specifically testing every morning. I know of lots of different types of things that they're doing, but I don't know all of them.
Okay. I know there's a preventative approach, then there's a, what to do if someone's feeling ill. So I was just curious how, to the extent that those preventative measures were put in place, such as, when you go to the dentist.
There's, I can tell you there's things that you wouldn't even think of. We have some where the trailers have UV lights that are basically doing sweeps every night after everyone's left. We have some where they have added specific portable toilets dedicated to crews. So they dedicate the toilet by crew to ensure that there's no cross-contamination between different trades or different subcontractors. So it runs the gamut. They are doing lots and lots and lots of different things in an attempt to ensure that they can continue working.
That's great. Thank you. Can we move on now? If I guess if anybody has questions, that would the right place be to ask you via email, Marina?
I think we typically direct those questions through Dan Young.
Okay, Dan.
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead and send any questions to me.
It looks like our next topic is open discussion regarding the BAC openings that Kevin mentioned, the need to identify and seat a chair and to fill one open position. Like all openings that we have, I would hope this is an opportunity to maybe address some of the areas that came up, particularly the business equity piece. Might be great to, and I know we like industry specific people on this committee, but to have somebody from one of those organizations I mentioned, I think it would be important to put the word out there. And I'd love to hear any other suggestions for filling those. It looks like there will be 4 seats.
There will be 4 seats.
Committee members and an open seat. And it looks like we have students already on our committee. So we need to talk about, I guess, recruitment and how and where we're going to recruit, and what the process might look like for vetting interested parties. I know at the audit committee we're looking at this as well, and we've created a Google form that we can share a link out to people that may be interested, and we've done outreach for that committee at the Multnomah County Auditor's Office and the City of Portland Auditor's Office, specifically asking if they could forward names of diverse candidates. So can we have a discussion about where we might go looking for these four new members, and if we have an idea of how we come up with a chair, or if there's a process in place for naming a chair?
So we don't necessarily have a process in place for naming a chair, and I think one of the things that Director DePass, you were kind enough to send us a copy of the application form that's being used for the audit committee, and we can certainly take that and revise it to provide an application form for the BAC. We'd be happy to post that on the web page dedicated to the BAC, on PPS's web page. It's dedicated to the BAC so that anyone can get to it. I think when you sent it, I think you also suggested that we could potentially put something on there that would allow people to check their interest in being the chair.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that might be a good opportunity to gather that information.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we would, rather than volunteering people, it'd be great to see from a pool of applicants who would be interested in that work, who would be interested in chairing. Kevin, I would hope you would be available to either help onboard a new chair, or at least be available as we're transitioning somebody on in that position.
Absolutely. I think there is some urgency. Obviously, we don't want to give the process short shrift, but you know, the end of the year is not very far away, and there is a decent amount of indoctrination, if for want of a better term. And you know, my guess is that the most likely chair would come from existing members who are staying on. Not necessarily, certainly, but I would hope someone in that group might have some interest. And with regard to the members, we typically, frankly, the outreach has been from BAC members trying to find new members, and we have. You suggested someone with a connection to an industry group, and we actually have recommended one person who has exactly that. And I know Dan has spoken to her, and she would make a big dent in the diversity shortfall that we have, and she would be a great candidate. So,
well, excellent.
I think one of the things that was not very clear was whether staff should be reviewing the applicants and bringing forward, you know, a smaller group of applicants for the bond committee to review, or if the bond committee is going to review those applicants all themselves. It would probably be helpful if we could kind of figure out what the review process is and who's doing the reviewing.
Yeah, and that's why I was asking. And sometimes looking at the way things have always been done doesn't serve us, you know, in the current moment. And so I'm curious how it's happened in the past, and if we can improve on that process. If it sounds like hasn't been a process, does anybody have any strong feelings about who gets to vet the applicants? If we put a link to a Google form on the website, that will be available for everyone. And so we would want to have some decision-making criteria in place, maybe prior to getting applicants. And by the way, we're talking as if, you know, 150 people are going to want to apply. I'm not sure what, I find this work really exciting, but I don't know if others do. And Kevin, you have a big shoes to fill. So, you know, which is why I was asking if you would be available for a long handoff.
Sure, no problem.
I mean, I guess what I'm thinking just off the bat, I just throw it out there, is that we have applicants come in through a Google form. That's on the website. I would hope that the staff would want to look at those to see. To vet for experience, interest, maybe background, and then present, depending on if there were hundreds of applicants or even, you know, a dozen, and we have 4 positions, kind of bringing those maybe top candidates to the committee, and then extending I think those committee members need to be appointed by the board, and so the committee would forward the names of the potential appointees. And I would just suggest that as a way to sort of move through a process.
Okay.
But staff, I also want to add on to your. I appreciate how much work you have on your plates as well right now with hiring, with COVID response, just the stress around living these days. And so I don't want to pile on more work to you. I would be happy to help just as a volunteer sort through applications if that would help relieve a little bit of that burden.
I was going to offer Dan's assistance in sorting through the applicants.
I actually was too. I didn't want to say his name out loud.
I think we should probably talk about timing though a little bit, because I think we definitely want to kind of talk through the timing of the bond committee meetings and how this rolls through that. So the bond committee has a meeting on October 15th and then another meeting on November 17th. If we are putting, I think we need to be targeting one of those meetings for applicants for the bond committee to determine if they're recommending them, because then it's going to need to go to a full board meeting. Am I correct?
I believe so. And so I guess we need to have, yeah, I guess no later than the 17th. And does that BAC, does the committee operate on a calendar year? Oh shoot, we're getting this looks like the city of Portland is going to be closed again tomorrow. Sorry for that disruption. So we need to have, by no later than that meeting on the 17th, we need to have the committee forward to the board. And then I don't know our board schedule offhand, but I can look it up. Or does it make sense to do this by October 15th, which is, less than a month away?
If I can jump in just for a second, I realize the timeline is very short, but optimum, I think, would be, the BAC has a meeting, I think it's the end of October, our next quarterly meeting. And it would be optimal, of course, to have new members, even if they're not yet appointed. So it doesn't necessarily have to have gone to the board, but if there's a short list, give them the opportunity to attend that before they, quote, take office, if you like. Now, that may not be doable, but that would be optimal, I think.
So that means we would have to actively recruit now to get the names by October 15th, to get the short list to the BAC. I think that makes perfect sense. Is that something we can do? I mean,
well, I guess I do have some concerns over whether we're going to be able to get even enough applicants in that time frame. I think we do want to spend a little more time recruiting. And I think what I'd like to suggest is that we put together an orientation of sorts for new members in January, and understanding that we're also talking about revising our reporting and our meeting structure. It may be that having them come to the October meeting is not necessarily a good indicator of what they'll be seeing in the new year, as we work through reporting differently and providing different meeting structure as well.
I'll throw in, I think I'll reiterate that their timing is coming up quick, but there's also a lot of moving parts at the same time, with as many as 4 new BAC members coming on board here in the next couple of months, a new chair, the desire to do a revamp of our reporting materials and documents, to have the new chair as an active part of that, as well as this committee and Director DePass, yourself, of course. And then we have a vote in November too, that could make this all look a little bit different. If we significantly increase the size and the scope of this bond program, that's going to have an impact on, I think, what the reporting cycle and those documents look like. So I might throw out for discussion I think we can pretty quickly, from a staff standpoint, turn around an application form that goes on the website. So as we recruit and as the BAC and staff and board members reach out and look for potential applicants, they can go to that website. And then I would submit that the December board meeting is really when we would want to target having those appointments there. That would give us some time to recruit, give us some time to review applicants and have discussions, make a recommendation. This committee can make a recommendation in November and then target the December. Having the new applicants, having the new board, at that point in time, we will know the results of the November bond, and then we can sort of springboard into new BAC member orientation, and then into getting into the weeds about what the new reporting documents and process looks like with all three parties, staff, the board, and the BAC.
Okay, I like that too. I think you're right about the election. That's going to be it'll be very impactful on the operations here. Does anybody have other strong feelings? And also, I think for most committees that are that have this scope of work, I know the city usually has an open recruitment for 3 to 5 weeks, and they do that to get a broad representation of candidates. At some communities, it takes a little bit longer to reach. So I would be happy with the proposal that you laid out, Dan. And I was just trying to look up. I don't know if anybody can look up. I just tried to look up our December meeting schedule. There are also holidays in there, so but I'm not being very successful finding it right now.
I know there's a meeting on the 15th of December. I'm not sure if there's another one offhand, but there's at least that target.
The 15th, and then, let's see, and probably not on the 29th. So that's probably our December meeting, at which point we want to have some discussion at the board level about these awesome candidates that have applied and that will be appointed. Does that sound good? We have on our agenda today to also talk about our reporting and the chair, and I think we might just want to move on due to time to our next topic, which is the subcommittee charter. And I'll just say that I have a meeting, have a very hard stop tonight, so I can attend a back to school night in my neighborhood. I'm interested in participating in.
Chair to pass, this is Stephanie. I just wanted to confirm there are 2 board meeting dates in December, December 1st and December 15th.
Thank you. That helps. So I guess if we work backwards from December 15th, Dan, as you suggested, that would allow us time to do a solid recruitment, vet candidates, and run through that process. And in terms of the reporting and the meeting, I think it'd be better to have new members contribute to that conversation. I don't know what you were thinking. If you were thinking you'd like to have at least our meeting schedule and our reporting in place before we have the 4 new members. What are your thoughts, staff, about that?
I think from staff standpoint, Marina, jump in here too, that we agree with that. Certainly, with a vote in November, that could change what the reporting looks like. We certainly would like new members and the new chair to be able to be a significant part of what that reporting process is, as they're going to be, intimately involved in reviewing the materials and reporting to the board. So I think we're going to want those pieces in place. That said, I think over the course of the next few of these committee meetings, we can start to have conversations and prepare what that might look like. As Kevin mentioned earlier, Maria and I have been reaching out to the individual bond accountability committee members to have some discussions of what they think, maybe some priorities might be going forward. for the reporting. And we can take a look at some other stuff. So I think we can do something. We can lay a little bit of a groundwork, allow the new members to come on board, do some orientation, and then kind of dive into the details and make sure that what we put in place, the changes are in place, meet everyone's expectations.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I always think of these times, of turnover as opportunities to get to co-create in a way that really changes the structure, and the names and the people on the committee will change, and it's an opportunity to at least question your operating the way you've been operating.
Chair DePass, can I just jump in for a second, because I understand all the time pressures here, but it would be remiss of me if I did not tell you that the existing BAC members who are staying on have made it crystal clear to me that they don't see a reason to hold off until December to work on a new framework of staff report to the BAC. Now, if that can't happen, it can't happen. But I want you to know that that's the unanimous view of the committee.
I think that's fair. And we can also, our charter allows us to add other members later in the cycle, right? We're not just beholden to that one time a year. So if we come up with a less than complete group of people, we can bring them in and keep working on it.
So you're saying we can bring them in and they're going to come into an established structure rather than having new people co-create what that looks like?
Well, I think Kevin's saying that's just the very beginning of the work. So is that right? That would just be the initiation of the work. So there would still be an opportunity to be part of creating that, but the current crew feels like they should get it underway, which
that's the clear message to me. Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
And if I may, from a staff standpoint, we're certainly willing to work with whatever schedule is necessary. I would just want to be careful that the relationship here really is a three-part relationship between staff, the BAC, and the board. And want to make sure that the board has opportunity to be a part of this process as well. So for the board and through this committee, probably largely make clear what their expectations are as both staff and the BAC report to the board. And so we want to make sure that it's just not a communication between staff and the BAC, but the board's able to really weigh in here and say, these are what our expectations are. This is the value that we feel that we get from the BAC and be a part of that process. So I think we can put together some timelines of what that might look like to get there. But we do anticipate that there probably will be some separate meetings between BAC members, board members, and staff to work through the details of that. So again, those three groups are all aligned.
That's,
I would also,
thank you. Go ahead, Marina.
Sorry to interrupt. I do also want to note that we will begin our report preparation for the October meeting in less than 2 weeks. So to make any significant changes prior to the October BAC meeting is unlikely. We do want to get input and be able to do a meaningful job with this, and doing it in that short a time frame is not going to allow that to happen.
Okay. I'm going to move us on to our last topic, and that is the committee schedule. The committee charter, which I don't know if we have enough. I don't feel like we have enough time to get into that, but we do. What we do have time to get into is a committee schedule. Would it be okay if if we tabled that conversation? It's a short conversation about the charter to another time, and talk about our our committee schedule going forward?
I tabled it for an entire year, Michelle, so I think we can table it for one more meeting.
Thank you. So committee schedule, we're currently meeting, is it every 4 weeks or once a month? And there's been some discussion about extending that out a little bit to, like, I think it's a 6-week schedule. Just open discussion. I know Andrew, I don't remember what your meeting schedule was. I think it was once a month though. Seems a little bit excessive to me.
Yeah, I think we were meeting once a month leading up to through bond development, but the idea was once the bond was referred, we would look at a different schedule and stretch meetings out a little bit.
So, and staff, because you're kind of staffing this committee, do you have a proposed schedule? I'm thinking like if we met every 6 weeks, I have not done the math on it. I know if we met every 8 weeks, every other month, that would be 6 meetings a year. I also don't feel like that's quite enough either. What do we think about? Go ahead.
I think 6 weeks sounds good. I think after we pass our bond, knock on wood, we're going to have some important discussions that we'll need to have in the new year. But until then, I think 6 weeks is good.
Does anybody have any objection to 6-week schedule? I think that sounds fine too. That's about 8. It's a little over 8 meetings a year. It comes up with 8.6. So we get 0.6 of a meeting.
From a staff perspective, 6 weeks I think works well. And if there's a need to have another special meeting, which I think there will be, we can schedule those at, as fit.
Should we go ahead and get those scheduled in and then have new committee members just conform to that schedule? I mean, we would have something to present to potential new members. These are the dates that we're meeting throughout the year. And confirm that they can meet, I don't know, 80% of them or whatever. Does that sound, Kara, do you think, could you help with scheduling?
Yeah, I can create a proposed schedule and send it to you.
That'd be great. And then there's some flexibility if we have something that needs to be discussed in between, we can pull that together. That's all I have today, unless anybody has questions, concerns that weren't raised in the meeting. Talk fast. We have about 5 minutes left. Seeing none, I guess we'll adjourn. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Especially our volunteer
Thanks,
BAC
Michelle.
members on the line. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director DePass.